When it was first announced that Bioshock 4 would be an open-world game, fans of the series were worried that the game would lose some of the aspects that made the original game so great. Specifically, fans were worried that the open-world nature of the game will mean that there will be less focus on story and character development, and more on exploration and combat. First, let's look into the game's atmosphere. The original Bioshock was lauded for its atmospheric setting. The game took place in the underwater city of Rapture, which was designed to be a self-contained utopia. However, over time, the city descended into chaos and became a dangerous place to be. This sense of isolation and danger helped to create a tense and atmospheric game world. If the next Bioshock game takes place in an open world, it may be difficult to replicate this feeling of isolation and danger. An open world map is typically more expansive and less confined than the original Bioshock setting. This could make it harder to create a sense of tension and atmosphere. There are ways to overcome this challenge, however. For example, the developers could design the open world so that it feels like a series of connected areas rather than one large expanse. This would help to create a more claustrophobic feel, even in an open world setting. Additionally, careful use of lighting and sound design could help to create a more atmospheric game world. While Infinite's setting was vastly different from the first games, it still managed to capture some of that feeling of isolation. It's possible that Bioshock 4 could still maintain the atmosphere of the original game, even with an open world, but it would be a lot harder to do so. And if the developers are trying to go for a more action-packed experience, then an open world is probably not the best way to achieve that. Another issue is that if the spaces where missions take place are too open, trying to create the tension and atmosphere of the first game will likely prove difficult. A feeling of isolation across the map is the one thing that made the original Bioshock so special. It helped to create unease in the player as they explored Rapture, not knowing what sort of danger lurked around every corner. With a more open world, it may be difficult to create that same feeling of tension and unease. There could be too much opportunity for players to explore and find safety in numbers, rather than feeling like they're constantly on the verge of being attacked by some horrifying creature. The developers will need to be careful if they want to maintain the same level of suspense and fear that made the first game so great. So, what specific issues worry the fans about Bioshock 4 being open world? One of the things that made the original Bioshock so special was its atmosphere. The game took place in an underwater city that had been cut off from the outside world, and as a result, it felt very isolated and desolate. This is one of the things that Bioshock 4's open world might sacrifice. While an open world would certainly give players more freedom to explore, do you think it would also make the game feel less claustrophobic and intimate? Well, let's explore. Additionally, fans are concerned that the open world will make it difficult to create the same sense of atmosphere and immersion that was present in the first game. One of the best things about the original Bioshock was its linear, focused storytelling. Players were funneled through a tight, well-crafted plot that slowly revealed the game's mysteries. Some fans worry that making Bioshock 4 open world will sacrifice this strength. An open world design can often lead to a meandering, aimless experience without a clear sense of purpose. It's possible that Bioshock 4 could lose the feeling of forward momentum and discovery that made the first game so captivating. There's also concern that an open world would allow for too much player choice and freedom. The original game's developers carefully curated every element to create a special effect, and it's possible that an open world design would undermine their vision. It's important to remember that we don't know anything concrete about Bioshock 4 yet. Everything is subject to change, and the final product may be just as focused and compelling as the first game, regardless of its open world status. Only time will tell. How could changing the atmosphere affect the course when it comes to Sonic's power with the Chaos Emeralds? When it comes to Sonic's power with the Chaos Emeralds, it is possible that changing the atmosphere could affect the course. For example, if Sonic were to travel to a different planet with a different atmosphere, the Chaos Emeralds may not work as well as they do on Earth. Additionally, if Sonic were to travel to a different dimension with a different type of energy, the Chaos Emeralds may not work at all. Therefore, it's important to consider the possibility that changing the atmosphere could affect Sonic's power with the Chaos Emeralds. There is no denying that the original Bioshock was a masterpiece of storytelling, and part of what made it so special was its tight, focused narrative. Every element in the game fed into the central themes and helped create an unforgettable experience. However, it looks like Bioshock 4 might be straying from that formula in favor of an open-world structure, and while there's nothing inherently wrong with with that. It could mean sacrificing some of the things that made the original so great. One of the biggest concerns is that an open world will dilute the game's story. With so much side content to explore, it'll be difficult for developer Cloud Chamber to maintain the same level of narrative focus. It's possible that the main story will get lost in all the distractions, or worse, it'll be spread too thin. Another worry is that an open world will make Bioshock 4 feel more like a traditional action game and less like the atmospheric horror thriller that we fell in love with back in 2007. The original game was meticulously designed to evoke a specific mood and atmosphere, and an open world may compromise that. Of course, these are all just speculative concerns at this point. It is possible that Cloud Chamber knows exactly what they're doing, and they'll be able to successfully navigate these challenges. Only time will tell. In the original Bioshock, one of the best parts was the lack of a time limit. Players could explore at their own pace, and there was no rush to get to the next objective. However, in Bioshock 4's open world, this might not be the case. While Sonic's newfound power in the form of the ring time limit is a great addition to the game, it also means that players will have to be more careful about how they spend their time. Exploration and fighting will now be balanced with the need to keep moving forward or risk losing progress. This could make for a more action-packed and fast-paced game, but it could also sacrifice some of the atmosphere and tension that made the original so special. Only time will tell if this new direction is a step in the right direction for the series. But with all that said, are there any benefits the fans will gain from that change of atmosphere? While it's true that the open-world environment of Bioshock 4 may take away from the sense of isolation and claustrophobia that made the original game so effective, there are still many benefits that fans will gain from this change. For one, the open-world environment will allow for a greater sense of exploration and discovery. Additionally, the open world will provide a more varied and dynamic gameplay experience, as players will be able to encounter different enemies and challenges in different ways. The game took place in the fictional underwater city of Rapture, which was designed to be a utopia for scientists and artists. However, the city ended up being a nightmare, as it was overrun by mutated creatures and psychopathic criminals. The atmosphere of the game was tense and oppressive, and it made you feel like you were in a truly dangerous place. For one, the open world will allow for more freedom in how players approach the game. No longer will they be confined to linear paths. They'll be able to explore the world and find their own way. Additionally, the open world setting will provide a greater sense of immersion, as it will feel more like you're actually in Rapture. Overall, the change to an open world environment in Bioshock 4 is likely to provide a more enjoyable and rewarding experience for fans of the series. And our bottom line is, Bioshock 4's open world might sacrifice one of the best parts of the original game, the sense of isolation. In the original Bioshock, you were a lone individual in a vast and empty world, with only your wits and whatever weapons you could find to survive. This made for a truly tense and harrowing experience, as you never knew what was around the next corner. With an open world, however, that feeling of isolation is likely to be lost. There will still be areas where you'll be alone, but overall, there will be a lot more people milling about. This could make for a less scary and more action-packed game, which may not be what fans of the original are looking for. Well, what are your thoughts? Thanks, guys, and see you next time.